Today in our application, we're going to build a balance module in order to know which users have money and which don't. And we also will create a model for financial transactions. Those will be the history of when the user's balance have changed. To do this, we're going to go in our schema file and we're going to start making the models first. So for that model, for the currency model, we're gonna use this one. We're also going to try to support different currencies. So we're going to make our system so that a user can have multiple balances, but only one balance of each currency. So actually, I haven't added that, so I'm going to do that. We need to add a unique between the user ID and the currency. So for each user ID, there can only be uh, um, one time the same currency. So a user ID can only have one currency balance of USD, but it can also have one of Euro, for example, but it cannot have twice USD. And for the financial transactions, we're going to build it like this. So we have the type, the amount, the currency, it's linked to a user, and it's also linked to a currency balance. Also for the type, we let it pretty loose. We just put string. We don't build an enum. That is because I don't know what types we're gonna have. I know we're gonna have deposit and withdraw, but maybe we'll have like an admin deposit and an admin withdraw to force withdrawals, stuff like that. So I'd rather just leave it a string for now. Also, I forgot to specify that here this what it does it allows to store up to 10 digits inside the amount, 10 digits before or after the dot, and this allows a maximum 2 digits after the dot. So for example, 10.00, this is valid. This is not valid because it has 3 digits after the dot. And the 10, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits in total, so it satisfies this condition but not this one. Now we are going to launch Docker, the Docker compose up, and then here we're gonna come and npm uh, migration generate. Add balance is the name of the migration. Okay, and now we're gonna go inside the modules and we're gonna start generating our modules. So SG module balance. We're also gonna create a service and a resolver as well. We're gonna come here, we're gonna clean up the tests. We are gonna create a test directory inside here. Okay, this is good. The resolver is good as well. Okay, now we can start. So inside the service, we're going to have multiple functions. One to give the user money without any trace of it. So we don't want to create a financial transaction. One, so this would be used for unit tests, for example, or integration tests. Then one where we give the user money and leave also a trace behind. So with the financial transaction. One that allows us to check if a user has enough balance in a specific currency. And I think that's it for now. So let's start with this. There, sorry. There we go. So we have built our functions. We're gonna go over them now. So it has enough function takes the user ID, currency, and amount, and we um, using Prisma, we're finding the first object in the database that satisfies the conditions. So of this specific user ID for the specific currency, and if the amount is greater or equal than the amount that we're asking for, then he has enough, and thus we return true. If this returns null, it means that it hasn't found an object which of the specific currency and the user ID and that has more than the amount, so we return false. For the give money here, it takes user ID, currency, and amount. We look for a specific balance with the user ID or currency. I could have done like this as well. This is valid as well. The only reason why I did it like this is because, well, not why I did it, but why this is possible is because in our schema we've mapped unique between user ID and currency. So that's why this is allowed. And so we update the amount by the amount that we want to give them. If this is negative, we will increment by a negative amount, so we will decrement basically. So this function also works with negative amounts. And like I said, this does not make a financial transaction. And so this is it in the case where we update the balance. If it doesn't exist, then we will create one with this specific amount. So this can also be negative if it doesn't exist and the amount is negative, which is okay, because it's up to our resolvers to then use has enough before withdrawing the money. And here we have one last function for now, transaction give money. So this is similar to this, but on top of it, we use a database transaction in order to make two database calls. So one that upserts the balance, same logic as here, but it also creates a financial transaction. And we use a database transaction to make sure that both either work and are created in the database, or if either one fails, both fail and will not be created, because we don't want to have to give them the money but not leave the transaction, for example. Okay, let's see. So now I think we're gonna build some tests to see how we would make tests. We haven't done this in this project yet. So I've copied over my test module from another project, and we're gonna go over everything. So we have some utils, create received event promise. So this is for WebSockets. When we'll use WebSockets to add real time to our application, this allows us to create a promise that tests if we receive a specific event. Uh, this should not be here, so I'm gonna delete this. Then here we create same thing for this is related to WebSockets. So we and subscriptions in GraphQL. We create an Apollo WebSocket client. Um, so yeah, we use the create client function from GraphQL.ws. We wrap it here, and then we return the client with also the raw WebSocket. This is very important, and it's available on the GitHub of the project if you want to copy it. This one is a very useful function. It allows us to test if a certain promise resolves in a specific amount of time. So if sometimes for WebSockets, for example, you need to test if you receive an event in a certain amount of time, and so this comes very handy in those use cases. Next is login OpenID user list. So this is a function that we use during our tests to log in a bunch of users, and so that then during the test we can make requests as those users using their JWT tokens. So let's just go over it quickly. We create the OpenID client service. This we've built this before in a previous episode. And I think here is missing a little. We need to make sure that this is valid. And actually, it's not here that I should add this, because it's only here that we make sure that it's valid. So I should add it over here like this. That's better. We're gonna fix all the imports afterwards. Send JQL, so send GraphQL. This is what I use for all my tests. Every single time you want to make a GraphQL request, which is, since it's a GraphQL API, it's almost always. We use this function during the test to make it. So we use requests from supertest to send the GraphQL using our token where that we've set up during the test with this function. We make sure that the request returns a 200, and we return the body of the request. And this is all typed and type safe because of this library that we're going to install. So let's install it. We're going to go back here, npm add, uh, and we're going to copy it. That will be easier. And I actually did not copy. Oh, this is not good. Up. I didn't copy the slash core, so I have to add it. We also want to in setup, so I haven't presented this file yet. I'm going to present it. But first, we're going to install add apollo slash client and GraphQL ws. There we go. So while this is doing, this is the big file that allows us to set up all our tests. So here I've hard coded some user accounts. If I'm not mistaken, in the previous episode we have set this up. Let's look. Configure keycloak maybe init keycloak. Yes, let's look. So yeah, we do make user and 1 to 5 and an admin account, and their passwords are azerty. Yes, so this is correct. So these are just test users for our test environment, so it's not important that it's hard coded. It's fine. So here we define a bunch of variables that we're going to use throughout our tests, and you will see how we use them a bit later. Remember that all of this is on the GitHub, so you don't need to worry about this. Here I'm going to remove all of this. This is basically a function to reset the database. So like this, and we're just going to use this one. And we don't want the patient case here. There we go. Then create DB users. So since after every test we reset the database in order to have a clean slate, we reset the entire database except the Prisma migrations table. So since we've reset everything, we need to create the users again. So we just create them in the database like this. Easy. This is the function to set up the test. So I will actually create the application, the entire application, create the test version of it, um, reset the database, and then return all the variables that I've talked about earlier, and log in all the users using this function that I've presented earlier over here. So this just to remind you, this will log in the user and save the JWT token to be used later during the tests. Here we have the tear down test function. So this is called when we tear down the function, the test. And this is to set up WebSockets for subscriptions. We're not going to use this yet, so I'm just going to go a bit slowly if you want to read it, but I'm not going to present it. And you can pause if you want to read more. So here we have an import error of asserted truthy. So I think we have this somewhere. No? Okay, I'll have to add it somewhere. So over here from in the package common source, I'm gonna add a types directory with type assertions. Assert is truthy is in this file, and then in the generic we have is falsy, is truthy, is undefined, and we also have here the types. Uh, yeah, that's right. Now that I think of it, that's right, but this should not be here on the common. This should be in the backend because this is specific to Prisma, which is not available on the front end. So we're gonna move this. We're gonna move this into um, here in source. We're gonna make a utils directory like this. There we go. Now if I go back here and try to import assert is truthy, it doesn't work because we haven't built our common, so we have to go to packages common pnpm build, and actually it won't even work because we need to import it here in the index, so we have to export everything from uh, types slash type assertion slash assert is truthy. That's not correct. Validation slash generic slash is falsy. There you go. That's everything. Now we rebuild this, and then we should be able to here to import it. There we go. Okay, so this is good as well. Let's see if there's any other errors. Yes, here. So we also have to add WebSocket in our backend pnpm add ws. That fixes it, but I see that there aren't any types, so we also have to add the add type slash ws in the dev dependencies. And there we go, that fixes it completely. Let's look in the other files. Uh, Yeah, this is an error here. Type document is an error type that acts as any and overrides all other types in this union type. Okay, I'm just gonna remove the string here and now it's fine. And there we go. So this should be good. So now we have our test module and now we're gonna be able to write some tests, which is the fun part. So over here we're gonna create a balance.service.spec.ts file, and I've filled it up already a bit. So we created the scribe block for the balance module. We set up our variables, and before all the tests, we want to set our variables equal to something, equal to setup test, which is the function here that I've presented earlier. So this will just remind you, create the application, reset the database, connect all the test users, and save their JWTs. After all the tests, we want to tear down the test. Here we set up some variables that will be useful during our tests. And before every single test, we want to reset the database and recreate the users. And now we can start writing tests. So here I've written some basic tests for the give money function. We want to make sure that it should create a new balance entry if it does not exist. So we get our user ID or amount, we give some money, and then we expect the result of this to be. Actually, I'm not sure that this is gonna work, so we're gonna do it like this: expect balance dot user ID to be user ID. Yeah, like this, and we're gonna remove this. Then we also want to make sure that in the database now there has been an object created. This should already make sure of it, but let's still add it to the test. Um, then it should make sure that it updates an existing balance if it already exists. So we want to make sure that that works as well, and that it works with negative amounts. Now, before running the test, I'm gonna remove all of this here in the package.json, and we're gonna add a pre-test. And so we're gonna make sure that we run our migrations and that we also change the database URL when we run the tests, because we might want when we just npm dev, we want to have one database, but when we run the tests, it's a different database that we use. So there we go. I use crossenv to change the database URL for the command. So I set the database URL to all of this up, and then we run npm run migration run to make sure that the database is up to date. And then during the test, we reset same thing, the database URL. So we override the one that's in the .env file. We set node options to this, so this makes sure that we're not going to run out of memory. On big projects, I sometimes have memory problems, so I just use this always. And then we adjust with some arguments, so this makes it so that it doesn't run all the tests at once. Since we don't support that with how we run our tests, because we use only one database for all our tests, so we don't want them to change the database all at the same time, since it could mess up tests, and you'll end up with flaky tests. A flaky test is when the test sometimes passes and sometimes doesn't pass, and you don't really know why. And in this scenario, it would be because sometimes your database, one test is making changes to the database that affect another test, and then that second test doesn't pass because of those changes you made in the first test. So, all of this to say that we don't run our tests concurrently, we run them in band. And yeah, there we go. Now let's test. I've already tested this earlier off camera and it didn't work. So we have to npm add cross n, and again npm test, but it's still not gonna work, I think. Let's see. Yeah, it still doesn't work. So I've come here and I've added this part over here. And now we have a different error, npm test. So we have this error that this isn't found. So I've looked for it, and this is in the generated files by from Prisma. So now we're gonna npm add this, and now if npm test, I've already tried it, doesn't work. There's another error. I'll show you. There we go, we have another error here. This seems to be related to the resetting of the database here. So we're gonna go look at that and see why it's not working properly. I suspect it's because we need to add cascade here. Um, the reason is because I think that this error is saying that like currency balance, it can't reset it because it's linked to the user table, for example. And if we do cascade, then it will work. Well, I expect it to work because it will also delete the user tables that are linked to it. So if we run pnpm test, let's test this theory and see if it works now. Um, so it's a different error. It seems to be a different error. Okay, so it doesn't find the balance service, and I know why. It is because in our app module we've never imported our balance module, so it doesn't know about it. So of course, let's just run pnpm dev. I keep forgetting this, so we're gonna go change the start dev to just dev. That's what I'm used to. Pnpm dev, just to make sure that the application works, and if it works, then we're gonna run the tests. Yeah, it starts up, so that's good. And now pnpm test, let's see. There we go. So it does work, but it expects there's a difference between the types. We're expecting ints and it's receiving strings. So yeah, we're gonna have to fix that, but the tests work. So they don't pass, but they work. So let's see. So it seems that if we add dot to a number function at the end, then it works on the amount. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add it everywhere. Here as well. And now let's try it. Pnpm test, and everything passes. So that's good. So here's a bunch of other tests for the not enough function. It should return false if the balance does not exist. It should return false if the user has less than the required amount. It should return true if the user has equal or more than the required amount. And for the transaction debug, it should create a balance in financial transaction if none exists. It should update existing balance and create a transaction. It should handle negative amounts as withdrawals. Should override transaction type if override type is passed. So there we go. And if we run this pnpm test, let's see, they all pass. I already know that. So it does not. And we have a problem here, so we're gonna have to find out why. So this says that for this last test over here, we override the type with bonus, transaction type, and we expect it to be bonus, but it is not bonus. Why? I don't know. So let's look why. Let's try to find why. So to debug this, I've added here I've printed out the type and the override type to make sure that this works. And over here, I've just said that this is the test so that I could read the correct one. Since this function is called multiple times, I want to read the message after this is the test. And it was printing bonus, but it was also printing deposit, so this must be wrong. So what I did is I added here parentheses, and now when pnpm run tests, I'll already remove the debugs. There we go. Everything passes, so it works now. So I think this is it for today. So in conclusion, what we've done today is we've created a balance module that allows us to give money to users, check if they have enough money, and also leave logs for financial transactions. And we've also set up a way to make integration tests. We haven't used everything there is yet because we haven't used any WebSockets or subscriptions, which is the same thing for GraphQL, and we haven't used our sendJQL function either yet. We'll do that in one of the next episodes, but we do have everything set up for that. So that's it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this.